Hello and welcome to Inside the Avatar Studio. Inside the Avatar Studio brings together innovative leaders from the virtual technology frontier to discuss their perceptions, perspectives, and predictions of what being virtual means in today's society. I'm your host, Kevin Feenan, and with me today is Bernhard Drax, and hopefully Daniel Moshel will be with us in a couple of moments. He's just sort of rezzing in right at the moment, who have just released their feature-length film, Log Into Life. Bernhard is an award-winning filmmaker, musician, and former radio news guy, originally from Munich, Germany. With 5 solo albums and numerous recordings as sideman, Drax has scored several movies, including the Emmy-nominated documentary The Virtual Mind. Daniel Moshel is a gamer and an award-winning director, having received numerous awards in direction and producing, including Sigma Barba. Hopefully, I'm going to pronounce this correctly. CG Barbner, Olympic Profile 2010, Servius TV, obviously Log Into Life, which we're going to be talking about, and one that for some reason his wife was willing to let him share her honors in, Der Doppelganger. Bernhard and Daniel, thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having us. Sorry, I was muting myself because of the typing issues. My son is right next to me. Thanks for having us. It's been a pretty wild ride, and until Daniel shows up, I'm going to quickly summarize his story because he has been working on this thing for 5 years.
I got an opportunity that I could watch the movie last night, and I must say that I was really impressed by everything that you guys both did. I mean, there's a lot of material in there, and there's a lot of things that I sort of want to ask and talk to you guys about. I'm going to ask a couple of really simple questions to start off with, and I'm probably going to ask ones that you're probably going to hear time and time again as other people talk to you, but. You know, and especially Daniel, I mean, you were mentioning as part of one of your blog that this movie has been 5 years from concept to completion. And I know even now you're looking for places in order to distribute the film through. But I mean, how does it feel to see the finished product now that you're there?
Good question. It feels very comfortable. I'm really happy to see it done, and I think yesterday or two days ago. It is actually the milestone for me because it was kind of born on the screen, and I'm very lucky, and I appreciate it that it's done, and it's a good feeling.
Well, I mean, it must have been a heck of a challenge because, I mean, unless I misread this, but I mean, you guys have close to 200 hours of footage that you had to go through in order to come up with 90 minutes of film material. And I'm wondering what you found were some of the more special moments that didn't make it into the film, because that's an awful lot of material to have to go through, and I just can imagine some of the things that probably ended up on the cutting room floor.
Oh yeah, for sure. 200 hours of real life footage, I would call this number, and on the other hand, we have, I think, 70 or 80 hours of machinima footage.
Wow!
At least on my hard disk.
On your hard disk, you're not counting.
Yeah, I'm not counting Oli Biff's hard disk as well. So it's we tried our best to make quantity.
Let me answer this from an outside perspective, because I did the music and I did the machinima supervision in the Second Life part, but Daniel, it is just, I mean, my hat is off for Daniel that he made these editorial choices, and I think they're perfect, these choices. And if you have 200 hours of material, you will fall in love with some things that you can't show. And I've seen things, for example, one scene that didn't make it into the movie is Stroker Serpentine's son playing piano. I thought that scene was was really great, and it didn't make it into the film for many reasons. So you always have to be pretty brutal with sort of the machete, if you will. And Oli Biff, who is in the audience, our friend from World of Warcraft, who just made it into Second Life.
Wow.
He's right there in the audience, and he's building, and he lives on my island, and I cleaned the sheets for him. I made him a little bed, and he's so he
That's
did
cool. Gnome bed.
So the whole World of Warcraft machinima aspect. I mean, Daniel? How many World of Warcraft machinima folks did we have? Like 3, right? That were delivering stuff to you.
3.
Yeah.
Three guys who did all the World of Warcraft machinima, and this was Baron Zosdun, Oli Bit, and Kiel, and yeah, they were awesome. I mean, every single one. They contributed so much. Also, like you and Jana, and this was an awesome feeling to gather all this great footage and this great. It was a nice process. I loved this process. This half year of machinimating, it was great. And I want to add something. I want to add that we had also a wonderful editor in our team. Her name is Karin Hammer, and she's from Austria here, lives next to me. And if I wouldn't have her in the boat, I think I would still sit here and edit this documentary. So a lot of props to her.
And I want to add to that, I've never met her, but when we worked on the machinima online, and I heard her, she was in the same room with you, already editing machinima and real life footage, and it was just a machine, right? I mean, there was a few months where we just worked around the clock like machines, and what was funny is that you captured all of the audio from our machinima raw footage, and Karim, the editor, had to kind of listen to us. We were talking we were filming machinima, we were talking all sorts of sometimes very nonsensical things, and she had to kind of edit that, and then later she dropped the audio. But we mastered all the challenges except for the time zone, and when it came to crunch time, it was difficult because some people had to work for others to deliver. So that means when I went to bed, or when I woke up in the morning at 5-6 a.m., there's already a whole bunch of messages from Daniel. Oh, you got to redo this, you got to redo that. And so he was waiting because it was already his evening, and his editor was waiting to get the stuff over there. So the time zone challenge is really something that even virtual worlds cannot sort of deal with.
Did you find that there were certain things that sort of helped with that?
So we had people in Finland, in Germany, in the US, me in the US, and so the core team, was on 3 continents, and we used everything in the toolbox. We used Dropbox to share files, and we're talking now about post-production and machinima specifically, which the most challenging part about the machinima actually was that we had to reshoot scenes with the main protagonists, Gentle Heron, who is here, and Stroker Serpentine, and J9 Scarborough. So just because of technical issues, and we looked at the material, and then it wasn't good enough, so we had to reshoot it. And so the challenge became, just like with actors, if you will, bring them, have them available. And so what we ended up doing actually, is we actually cloned the avatars to reshoot some scenes. So this is a documentary, and we had the avatars not do anything that the real life people who would steer these avatars ordinarily wouldn't do, but we had to replay it basically. So it's an interesting conundrum ethically, if you will. Some people might say, well, then this is not authentic, it's not a documentary because you manipulated that person. Well, all that we did was we redid exactly what that person would do. So I personally don't see a problem with that at all from a sort of a journalistic standpoint. It's like the same thing if CBS does a pre-interview and then when the cameras are rolling, you do it for real and you basically say the same thing once again.
Yeah,
stunt doubles. There you go.
Yeah, I was thinking, as Amy was just saying, the stunt doubles. Yeah, I was about to say this is all though applicable to the machinima portion, because I'm finding it very hard to believe that Gentle or Stroker would be anything other than honest and upfront, and what you see is what you get type of thing in terms of the live.
Oh yeah. But what was interesting is, first of all, and Daniel, unfortunately we have these issues, but Daniel has said in other interviews that, the challenge really is people are very guarded with their privacy, and Gentle also said that to a German newspaper, that it is very hard to establish this trust, and Daniel managed to establish the trust with our protagonists, so they shared a lot for the camera and for a global audience. But it was another step to give up their avatars. I mean, even if it only was a clone, but isn't that interesting? I mean, this opens a whole new bunch of questions, about identity and so on and so forth.
Well, sort of, because I mean, if you look at where George Lucas has been coming from ever since he made Star Wars, I mean, George Lucas has been on this massive quest to basically take actors out of the picture completely.
Yeah.
He's on record as saying, his ideal film wouldn't involve any actors; they would all be CG, right?
Believe me, as a machinima maker, and Oli Biff probably would say the same thing. We would sometimes love to do that. Actors are so difficult.
Nah, I can't believe that. Not in terms of the folks that you guys had there. Okay, Daniel's just popped back in, so hopefully we'll get some of the sound issues with him sort of sorted away, which would be awesome. One of the things that I really wanted to ask you, because when I was watching the film, one of the things that I didn't quite get the sense when the film first started off in terms of what was the connection between a lot of these people that you had in the film, because I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, there's a real dichotomy between having Gentle Huron up first and then contrasting her with Stroker. I mean, you can't. I mean, I love them both, but I tell you something. I mean, this is about as polar opposite as you could possibly get, and I'm really wondering what sort of influenced the film in terms of why you picked the lives of the people that you did, and what was sort of the thread that sort of moved through the film.
Well, that's an interesting question, and some people have pointed out that it's sort of a collage of things, looking into virtual lives of people, but there's not necessarily a connection. I would disagree, because first of all, obviously the world is the connection that all the let's just take the SL part. All these people have a strong connection to the world, and we connect them with their personal lives and how they're impacted by the virtual world makes them, to me personally, is glue enough. I sometimes find, and that's what I told Daniel, that's my hat off to him, that there is not so on the nose, sometimes artificial, connections and interaction. Granted, there is not a lot of interaction between Gentle and Stroker, but I think their connection is because they're both so passionate about the environment, and all they do is to use the environment of Second Life to fulfill their potential. I saw a comment this morning on Hamlet's blog. Douglas, a friend of mine, said, and then he saw again Stroker and all the the cliche of the sex industry, and why can't we have a documentary without it? I have to strongly disagree with him, because the movie is exactly the opposite. It does not exploit that for the gains of sort of a short-term sort of tabloidy style, and that's because Daniel, the style that he demanded also of us, also musically and with all these elements. The sex industry is a strong industry in Second Life. It is ridiculous to deny that, but we don't focus on it as sort of this seedy thing. It's just a business with which Stroker happens to feed his family, and that's the emphasis here.
Well, it's interesting to see some of the dynamic, especially between Stroker and his wife on camera, because at some points in the film, the relationship between the two of them, it seems like they're absolutely okay with this, and then other points in the film, it's sort of like it's like, boy, you're sleeping on the couch for the next week.
Exactly, and you know what? And that's and I'm going to speak for Daniel here, and that's one of the things where I told him during this whole process, I really congratulate him for not inserting any type of sort of, wagging finger or commentary here or some dramatic music or whatever. It is the life that we deal with in a family situation, even if we're not in the sex industry, okay? I slept on the couch a couple of times, and I don't have a virtual wife. So, this is the emphasis is on lives. And here, Daniel put in the chat, contrasts are important. And that's what I wanted to add, because to answer your question, you said, they're polar opposites. Yes. But life, the complexity of life and the complexity of societies is rich, because we have opposites and we have contrasts and we have different models of how we engineer, if you will, or how we sort of proceed through life. And that, I think, is really the gist of the film. When you contrast this now with Oli Biff, his connection in World of Warcraft is with Corey, our paralyzed friend from California, and they're also going into Second Life, and they connect in World of Warcraft before they go into Second Life with the gold farmer. So now, anybody who hasn't seen the film, this sounds incredibly complicated, but it really isn't. It is people who find these spaces. Exactly. It's about Bevan. Why don't you just write it? I read what you write, because that's exactly. And the title of the film is "Log Into Life." You log in, but your life is enhanced. It's enriched, and global communities form. And these global communities, these communities of interest, these communities of passion, are a lot stronger sometimes than the ones that we form in the physical world.
Okay, so the next question I sort of have is going to sound really prudish, and I really don't mean it as bad as it's going to sound. But I tell you something, when I first hit that opening scene going into the whole spiel with Stroker, and you have to bear in mind there was a little bit of context to this, because essentially Bevan had written me and said, "Oh my God, here's the link. You have to go see this. And can I post this on Rockcliffe?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem. Go ahead and post it on Rockcliffe." And then I got whatever it was, 10, 12 minutes into the film, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what the heck did I just tell Bevan?" Right? And there are different moral standards of behavior, and certainly Europe is more liberal than the U.S. Canada is more liberal than the U.S. As a matter of fact, Japan is more liberal than everybody, and China's sort of still in the dark ages in some cases. I mean, it really sort of depends upon how you want to look at things. But, there's different sort of moral standards by which people may come in and they may judge the film.
Yes.
And by the time I was finished it, I understood that, essentially, worst case scenario, this is essentially an NC-17 film, right? There's nothing overt or really sort of out there in terms of what's there. And I by the time I had finished the film, I was very comfortable with saying, yeah, absolutely, let's go and let's tell everybody at Rockcliffe about this. I've got no problems with what's there, but not everybody is necessarily going to bring that same attitude to the way that they view the film, and especially with that opening scene for Stroker, right into like the 15 minute mark. Was that a conscious decision to bring that stuff in up front? Because I noticed that as the film went on, it sort of tailed off. You got more into the story and less into the graphical component of everything that was going on.
I'll let Daniel answer if that was a conscious decision. To your, that's a very good question, and I can completely sympathize. Two friends said, you gotta put a disclaimer, not safe for work viewing. So these are considerations now that also the distributors or the production company will have to think about when it comes now to international distribution. Thankfully, I don't have to think about it, and I think Daniel has already made the decision, and the German Public Broadcasting Company, which was incredibly supportive and financed this film over years and really was very supportive. They signed off on this. I would imagine that Daniel's decisions were, and because there's so many cuts of this film, countless, that finally it just made sense narratively and in the grander scheme of things, where it goes and what kind of message he wants to send and what kind of overall style he wants to bring out, that it was crucial to put that scene right there and introduce Stroker over that, because that's what he is. He goes to he throws these parties as part of his business. He throws these Naked Friday parties. Believe me, I filmed that stuff. Okay, I was there. I was the only clothed person. So I was there in my suit, and everybody's like naked. It was insane. No, I was there in my suit in SL, and the NC-7. I think this is a whole debate. I find it very, very appalling how in the U.S. This is handled, where you cannot see a breast on TV, and at the same time you can murder 1 million people in a half hour, and that's totally fine, and that's PG-13.
Well, I mean, and also the U.S. is one of the biggest purveyors of porn anywhere in the world. So I mean,
exactly.
It's one of these big dichotomies in the fact that you got the moral right, which is sitting there saying, "Oh my God, you can't possibly show that," and you've got the liberal left, which is producing more films permitted than any place else in the world.
But having said that, I absolutely agree with. I have these same concerns, and I want, at the end of the day, I want more people to see this film. And if a distributor comes here and says, if you cut me a 60-minute version, we can show it on PBS in the US, I'm sure Daniel will say yes, because then people get the gist, okay? Because it's such an important subject matter, and they get introduced to this, and then they might choose to buy a version on iTunes or on DVD. And thankfully, today we live in a media environment where there is so much flexibility, and the content creator is really sort of the not the king, but you have much more negotiating power. And I think it's not me to make this decision, but I think Daniel will be able to negotiate this and will totally sign off on a version that cuts a lot of the graphic material.
Well, to a large extent, I don't really, like, after having seen the film, I don't necessarily feel that you need to. I mean, I certainly see, having seen the whole film in its entirety, I certainly see where it sort of adds to the story that's trying to be told, and certainly, there's nothing worse being shown on there than you'll ever see on HBO. So, it's. But it was just.
But what I'm saying is, you're absolutely right. I just want to make very clear that we're not, we're aware of this, and we're not going to be, or Daniel, I'm sure, it's not going to be stubborn. I'm the artist, and this is my film. Take it or leave it. That would be pretty stupid, especially when you now have so many abilities to cross distribute to hybrid distribute, put stuff online, have 10,000 different versions, one for PBS, but people can still get it on iTunes or whatnot.
Of course, if there are any, if there are any barriers because of one or two scenes, I put them away, or I put a bigger mask onto it or something like that, so then we don't have this problem anymore. I hope this will solve the problem. What do you think?
Well, I don't, like I said, I don't really see it as being a problem. It was just, it was the context of sort of what had happened in terms of sort of Bevan sort of asking me one question and me saying, yeah, no problem, let's do this. And then all of a sudden, then I saw that scene come up, and I'm sort of like, oh shoot, if we're going to do this, we got to add a little bit more to it than just, by the way, go see the film. But
but you also asked, let me rephrase this for Danya, because you asked a very good question. Your question also was that the scene of the party, right, with the metal music, does it come right there and it kind of hits you in the face, and all of a sudden, it's pretty calm, and then all of a sudden there's tons of naked people dancing around, right? You were also kind of talking about the placement, I guess.
There was two creative aspects to it that I was kind of interested in. One was certainly the placement, because if I look at it, I sort of see it as sort of like a graph in my head, and if I look at it, it's sort of like you've got this big scene up front, and then it's sort of like, okay, we've hit the shock value, and now we can actually get into telling the rest of the story. And to a certain extent, I sort of like that from my point of view, because it was sort of like, okay, something, there's nothing else coming up in the film later that's sort of going to trump that. Now I can focus really on the story of what's trying to be told. So I was kind of interested in the placement on that. And then the other piece to it that I was interested in was the relationship between how you saw the difference, because being virtual, we deal with people from around the world. How do you see the differences in terms of moral dynamics as different social communities are going to be watching this film? And was there any portion of that sort of influenced your decision in terms of what scenes were included and which ones weren't?
If I try to answer this, okay, Drax? Actually, as a filmmaker, you can't keep in mind everything what you are mentioning, because if I would think about others, how they could recept the film, I would become crazy, I guess. And you always do the things as a I don't know, as a creative person, what you think works for you, and it has something with dynamic. It has something to do with dynamic. How if your decisions are always. It's your personal feeling, how you feel about it. How would you like to be led through the film? And this is the question I ask myself, and I don't have anything else to relate to, or to my confidence is just me in doing this. And then you make the decisions, and then again I had a wonderful editor who suggested some scenes and suggested the kind of sequence of the scenes, and this was always, I was always astonished what she brings into the light. So I hope I could answer part of your question with that.
This is so interesting, because I think Daniel maybe subconsciously, and Karin, the editor, maybe or consciously made that choice. And what your analysis that, now that we got this out of the way, is actually interesting, because the other documentary that's out there, Life 2.0, and I've been publicly critical of it. I know the guy who made it, and it's a tough job to do that and get people opening up and blah, blah, blah. But in Life 2.0, what my biggest criticism would be that throughout this entire 90 minutes of this documentary, he takes advantage of that stuff. He brings it back, the cheap shots, as I call them, the cliches. One of the protagonists sleeping on the floor in her mom's basement, and such things. I think our film is just so different in tone intentionally so, to let people make their own judgments about it.
Right. I want to sort of go away from that because, I mean, I didn't really mean to take up as much time on that particular question. Like I said, it was an interesting thing that I sort of noticed, but I didn't really want to sort of focus on it. But one of the things that I'm very interested in was, and I don't know whose idea this was, and I don't know, Daniel, if this was your idea or if this was Gentle's idea, but certainly anybody that's been here in Second Life any longer than about 4 years, they know Saul, they know the Soranger, and that whole scene that you had near the end of the movie that sort of was shot at the memorial site for Saul, was that your idea? Was that Gentle's idea? How did that sort of come to be inside the movie itself?
We can ask Gentle as well, but I think I have maybe 60 hours of footage of Gentle in real life, and Soul was one. I think when watching all the footage and checking it, this was one of the most impressive chapters, and so we decided, because I wanted to show that relations are worthwhile and are as real as in the so-called real world in Second Life or in any virtual world. So this was one major chapter or scene or sequence in which I could show that. And so this first of all I had, of course, the footage which I shot in Denver, and after and she, I was the first time at her place in 2008, and she mentioned it in 2008 because she died 1 year before, I think. Mm-hmm. And I asked some additional questions when I, over the years, 2009 and 10, and so this was kind of development also, and this is all edited together, in the scene. So I think it was an important scene for us.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add something very important, which is really magical, because when Daniel and I filmed this scene, you can see this woman with the butterfly wings. And we filmed, and when we filmed, an avatar came on the scene with butterfly wings, and we were filming, we don't have names, we don't have the names, so I didn't know who it was, and we filmed, and then we had the footage, and we looked at the footage of Gentle there, and there is a woman coming on with butterfly wings and then walking away again. And I said, wow, who was that? And so, well, I don't have names. We don't have names, so we had no idea who that was. But so it was really, really magical. We staged the scene afterwards, but this happened for real when we filmed it.
Yeah.
So make of it what you want.
Yeah, it would just. I found it very interesting because, like I said, anybody that's been in here for a while knows of the Sargner, and hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. I keep not quite getting it right, but I mean, she was so influential for a lot of people's lives, and I can understand why Gentle sort of likes to go over there and meditate, because it is a very peaceful place and what have you. But to me, that was an extremely powerful scene, just because of I know for myself, because of the connection that I know a lot of people have to what Saul. Well, I mean, certainly, first of all, because it was Gentle. I mean, let's call a spade here. I mean, Gentle's got to be one of the most wonderful, incredible people that I have ever met inside Second Life. And then to have that contrast between that whole dynamic with two very powerful personalities that have influenced so many people and have touched so many lives. I think for anybody that's been in here at any length of time, that scene itself is going to become very, very powerful to a lot of people that are familiar with Second Life. But
Yeah.
but I mean, that's just me. I mean, I've been here for a while. I mean, it's I've been here since 2006. So it's anybody that's only shown up in the last couple of years won't really know what I'm talking about. But some of the people that have been here for a while, I mean, it's just that's. I don't know. I just found it incredibly powerful, and I was just wondering if it was a conscious choice or if it was something that was suggested, or if it just happened.
It didn't just happen. Nothing happens just in film.
Yeah, Pookie's now tearing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in documentary, I don't know where I read this, but documentary film is interesting. It's nerve-wracking because you're there with a camera, I mean, and you hold it and you hope that something occurs. And to me, this scene is also incredibly powerful because it really summarizes what a virtual world can do and how real it is. And that's all. I mean, like I said, when we filmed the machinima, I was just really blown away. I mean, who knows who that woman is with the butterfly, who is just visiting while Gentle is there reminiscing about the Sojourner.
See, now if that was real life, you could just picture that being, the angel flying in at the right moment type of thing.
Yeah, and I can, but again, I have to emphasize this. People may look like, I want to say something. A German paper wrote a brief blurb about the film, and one sentence is, and then protagonist Alice Kruger goes through an incredibly corny landscape, which looks terrible. And I want to go over there and slap that writer a couple of times. It is just, can you believe this?
But isn't that part of the creative process, though, is having the shoulders to take that type of criticism by people that don't know any better?
I think, yes. I think it's just what you have to live with. But I just find it incredible that people cannot look past, okay? They look past the kitschy crap that they have in their church or whatever they have, wherever they have it, or they go to Disneyland and go, oh, awesome. And then, anyway, don't get me started.
Well, it is interesting, and actually, there's several other questions that I have that I'd like to ask, and I know I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but I want to sort of change the tenor just a little bit. In terms of this whole idea of working between mixed reality and virtual and machinima and the World of Warcraft stuff, I mean, there's and Draxtor, I mean, especially inside a lot of your stuff where you've got mixed reality and machinima, one of the things that I've noticed is that when you bring those things in, Second Life is very much a part of the story, but I'm wondering whether or not through this entire process whether or not you found that there is a real benefit to using mixed live action and machinima as part of telling the story, independent of whether or not Second Life is part of that story or not, or World of Warcraft or whatever you're using for the machinima component. I mean, where does that sort of fit in the creative process as you're developing these projects that both you and Daniel have been doing over the years?
Well, I would distinguish, first of all, with my stuff from the very beginning, what interested me the most. I mean, there's so many things, as you know. I mean, Second Life is just so fascinating. But I tried to focus on in the beginning, on how people. I always wanted to show how people sort of behind the scenes use it, and wanted to show the very strong connection, because that's how I feel and that's how I felt now, I still feel that there is this connection. That the virtual realm is basically an extension. And if I had $1 million and a Hollywood studio, I would probably do a lot of special effects, how you go inside the computer and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't know if I would. But the point is that this is, to me, sort of the message, the underlying message that sort of I try to bring home all the time. With Daniel's film, it's a different story because it was from the very beginning sort of, if you will, a traditional documentary in the sense that it's it's just a 90-minute documentary film that looks at a phenomenon. Okay, so if you will, it's different. I start with the virtual world, and I sort of say, these people are actually real. So it's kind of an aside. It's important. I don't want to call it an aside, but I start with the virtual and then mention, these guys are not non-player characters. These guys are real. While Daniel's film is very much rooted in the physical analog world, and it looks at the digital world as this phenomenon that changes these people's lives. But like I said, to me, in my machinima reportage, this is sort of the running thread. I mean, I would love to do a whole bunch of things, but this is sort of, now I'm sort of known for this stuff, and I enjoy it, so I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Right. I mean, for Daniel, and hopefully Daniel can hear me here, but Daniel, was this your first entry into mixed reality and machinima, or?
Yes, actually, yes. I didn't do a lot of machinima work before. Actually, nothing. And Draxtor showed me. He taught me how to do the technical stuff, and he was always my mentor here. But I'm already in contact with him. I think since we know each other since 3 or 4 years already. And he always was one of the, I think he was the best co-worker I worked on that with, because he's working already so long on this, and he helped me also in the concept phase. When I asked him, I asked him for his opinion. What do you think? Do you think this is cool if we put this character into the movie? And he was always there with his ear, and he gave his opinion towards that, and so I appreciate his work and everything what he contributed to this film. Without him, it wouldn't be as possible.
Actually, Daniel used to call me employee of the month. I don't know if I'm still the employee. Or only Biff is the employee of the month. I don't know.
No. Right now, Stephanie's the employee of the month. She's the one that's putting all the effort in right now.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
I will replay this for her. Thank you.
She was also very critical. I told Daniel many times. I mean, it's tough when your spouse is also an artist, if you will, or works in the artistic field. I'm so happy that I'm married to a lawyer. No, I mean, it comes with its own challenges. You're always on trial. That's the problem. But if
skip this, Bernhard.
So Daniel, I have to ask, when you took credit for Stephanie's awards, did you have to sleep on the couch?
Well, not yet. She was actually happy that I involved her name also into this whole thing, right?
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just checking because I was reading through your blog and I saw that, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh boy, he's paying for that comment, obviously."
No, I was just a producer. I didn't take any credits, so.
We've had people that we've had on here in the past have referred to this idea of being virtual, and in a lot of cases they've referred back to not just the 3D space, but also the sort of the 2D space and the mobile space and other spaces like that. Drax, to a certain extent, this question is probably a little bit more for you, because you had the Drax files on art and design, which I thought was a really interesting. That's the art critic in the background. So you had in March, you had this thing with regards to the Idea Lab and the Flickr Getterer site, and I thought it was very interesting because they were talking about this idea of the 2D internet as being an abstraction of the way we normally interact with our 3D environment, but people in real life don't get it. The technology really hasn't sort of caught up to where we're going to be. And what I'm wondering about is, because we've had so many people talk about the mobile space as being a virtual space and one in which avatars will potentially exist at some point, but nobody's been able to define that properly. And I'm wondering whether or not, through what you've seen through what they did with the Idea Lab, whether or not you see this, all these iPods and iPhones and iPads and iPeople and whatever other things are going to, iJobs, whatever they're going to come up with next, as being a potential extension of what it is that we're doing here, and whether or not any of this will potentially catch up with the types of things that you're doing, and you and Daniel are both doing sort of in the virtual spaces here.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me because, first of all, I do agree that it makes no sense that the internet is going to remain as it is. It needs to become 3D. It needs to engulf us, and we interact in the physical world in 3 dimensions. So we should do that online too. And Daniel and I always talk about it and joke about it. About the contact lenses, and we both, I think, look forward. A lot of people don't, but we do look forward. Once we have a contact lens, let's say, or glasses where we can project alternate realities or augmented reality or whatever the name is completely secondary. Or if it's holograms, or we interact with the Kinect or other interfaces rather than sitting there and the mouse. The mobile space right now, is very interesting, but it's not immersive at all. So the immersive power of something like Second Life is still sort of, frankly, unparalleled in my opinion. And what I don't understand is, this may not answer your question, but a lot of people are intensely scared. And I think we all have this when we talk to people outside of Second Life. They're very scared of this, as if the Matrix is coming and the machines are taking over. But of course, nothing could be further from the truth.
Oh, I don't know. I've seen that gnome in Darlaran that's selling all the recipes that Oblabeth is talking about, and the.
Well, just steer clear of the gnomes.
That may scare a few people off.
Well, basically, I think people are not ready in their minds. They haven't caught up with what is possible, and there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding. And by the way, I hope the film will clarify a lot of that. But interacting in everyday life with mobile, I can only see that what I really want to see are glasses or contact lenses that connect with the internet and project information on it, if it's virtual or augmented. The most interesting stuff that's happening in that space is actually what my friend Noni de la Peña is doing, and her friends. She's doing the Hunger Project. And she did the virtual Guantanamo project. These are things where you have goggles, and the goggles bring you into the world. Of course, these goggles are very clunky, but that'll change. Right now, I have an iPhone, of course, and apps are fun, but it's a distraction mainly. It's nothing interesting.
So it's interesting that you raise that, because I mean, certainly through other video blogs that you've done. I mean, so another one which was on the and I've forgotten the name of it, but it's basically Always in Season Island.
That's right.
Right, where they're talking about you had this quote at the end of it from Martin Luther King, and I don't have the exact quote here, but I mean, do you feel that virtual worlds have the ability to influence good people to break their silence over major social issues? And it almost sounds as if you're sort of on the fence with regards to whether that's possible or not.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And the Always in Season project is a as yet unfunded documentary film project. They're looking for funding, and there's tons of footage already. My friend Jackie has interviewing former descendants of slaves and unbelievable footage. There's some money, but there's not enough money to finish this documentary. And the Second Life experience is basically to be designed as a sort of a role-playing a role-playing experience where you can play a bystander, you can play an active participant, or you can play a victim, and it would examine the roles. And how is it possible that in the 30s 10,000 people were standing there while somebody was lynched, and people were sending postcards. And so this is the experiment that we designed for SL. Like I said, it's not there's no funding to do this right now. But yes, I am a little bit on the fence. I think just like the internet itself, Second Life amplifies what's already there. And I'm a frustrated idealist, let's put it that way. If I see the Republican debates and I see these clowns, I don't want to get political, but when they say stuff, when they applaud executions and they applaud basically, if you don't have a job, you're lazy and that kind of stuff, I lose hope in humanity. I got to be honest with you. I think Second Life has a lot of potential, but ultimately it amplifies what's there. I'm not sure if it can change anybody.
Okay, we're actually going to have to wrap up in about 1 to 2 minutes here, but I've got my Pookie's got her thing that she says at the end of her show, and I've got the thing. I've got my own little question that I sort of pose, and this is both Drax to you and Daniel. If you had a crystal ball, what do you think the impacts of virtual worlds will be on society in 5 to 10 years in the future?
Okay, let me get this real quick. So when I see my son interact, and my son recently designed an avatar. You can buy it on Marketplace. It's totally awesome. It's a collaboration with a team in Prague. When I see him interact online in Lego Universe or other spaces, also with my father, and he does not distinguish. He doesn't say, he says, oh, this guy is there. Oh, we'll meet there. And he means a space in virtual reality. And, some people will look at it. What do you mean? What do you mean on the tower? What do you mean? There's no tower in Pacific Grove. He means in the virtual space. So I think that this generation, it will just not have a problem to distinguish that it's about the experience. And and that's really powerful. So it will have a huge impact because these kids will create communities, and they will, it's globalization, basically, in good and bad, but the kids will not have a problem, as we have, to distinguish between these realities, and they will navigate those networks seamlessly with like a skateboard, just skating and floating. That's my answer.
Yeah,
Daniel?
shall I add something? Okay.
Yeah, please. Where do you?
Okay, I think just in short, I think it takes 15 years, but then we have this phenomenon number of Facebook, like 800 million users, and I think, I don't know if it will call Second Life or Facebook 3D or something like that, but at least then almost everybody who lives in the first world will have an AV. It's like Snow Crash. I think I wouldn't do the film if I wouldn't believe in Snow Crash too.
Yes.
That's my answer.
Snow Crash minus the terrible privatization stuff, but absolutely. And I just hope it's not going to be Facebook 3D, because I think the fact that here you can be who you want to be, and your name, it doesn't squeeze you into this box that Facebook does is so liberating. So that's what I hope. I would add to that. That Second Life has the secret sauce, but they don't. I mean, Linda Lab has it, and I'm not sure that they know it though. That's the problem.
Probably. But listen, I need to sort of wrap it up here. So Bernhard and Daniel, I mean, that's all the time we have available for the broadcast show today. I would like to invite you, however, to stay for an after show wrap up, because I'm quite sure we got lots of people in the audience, and I'm probably quite sure they've got lots of questions for you guys as in addition to myself. It's been wonderful having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to good things to come from both of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, guys, catch the film until Sunday. It's going to be offline for a few months.